the worthy and the unworthy, the righteous and the evil. I don't usually talk about personal things except as things which are situational or anecdotal or essential and yet completely, or at least in some significant way, related to the topic under discussion, which is not about me. It's not about me at all. I'm here, I'm involved, I'm presenting information, but it's not about me. It's about the information that I'm presenting, quite literally, quite basically. I'm just part of that process. As far as anyone else is concerned, it shouldn't matter to them for the sake of their understanding if I'm even visible, or even if I'm known by them as an agent of any kind. All that matters is what I'm saying true, and how would you know? How would you know something I'm saying is true? How do you know anything that you know? Assuming you even know it, how do you know it? Do you say there's no how? Do you have a description of what it's like to know without there being a process, a how? Is there no cause to the effect of knowledge? What is the cause if there is one? What is the effect, knowledge? Or is it an effect? Is knowledge something that's not just an effect, but is actually more than a sequence of events of cause and effect? So perhaps, for example, equality. I mean, it's something to consider. If you do understand that there are all these different ways of thinking about knowledge, then you can easily understand, and more, and there are many varieties of ways to think about anything at all. There are many ways to categorize things. There are many ways to think about them. There are many ways to evaluate them. Do we think that all these ways are right, or that none of them are right? Do we even have the idea that there is a right or a wrong, or a way of thinking or doing or being, or feeling or evaluating or anything else? If we believe that we can know something like that, if we think we can know something like that, or if we just plain know something like that, is it describable? Can it be described? If it can be described, is there a useful way to represent that description? Are there many useful ways to represent that description? If those ways are they useful only in the mind, or are they useful in decisions made actively in the world? Or is there a meaningful distinction between the two? As Bruce Lee said, and others, it's all about planning and action. So is it simply the case that there's really a distinction between theory and practice, or are they basically the same thing? And then if so, are they really two sides of the same coin? Or is it a coin and both sides are one of them, but one of them just has a different name? So that it's theory and practice is just another kind of theory. Or it's theory and practice, but theory is just another kind of practice. Or are they both just terms we use to try to represent a process we don't fully understand, or all the above in some way? All these questions and many, many other questions are at issue in philosophy. And really, philosophy itself, being this, is always stretching the boundaries of its scope, making it both wider and narrower at the same time. That's why all subject matter takes on this sort of architecture because it's all founded in the same process, and philosophy is just the epitome of that process in various ways. Really, both in terms of art and science, it's just that by the time it reaches the modalities of art and science, it's gotten very concrete as to the qualities being expressed or the quantities being analyzed and evaluated. So basically, in light of this complexity, this dynamism, it's not an invalid thing to do to sort of set the stage and the context by saying, I've just asked all these questions. I haven't answered any of them. Not right here. I just asked them. I'm not in a hurry to answer any of them right here. I'm never in a hurry to answer these questions. But I'm never going to stop trying to until I get an answer. I'm not in a hurry to breathe every breath I'm going to take in life in 5 minutes. But if it takes another 55 years to breathe all those breaths, I'll take those full 55 years. That's what is required if it's worthwhile to continue doing so. If we have a world with breathable air, and many other factors are included. Socrates lived until he was 70, who knows? But none of this is really the point when it comes down to knowing for yourself something. I mean, you can get very specific forms of art that appeal to you, but you don't necessarily know why it appeals to you. You don't know if any of that really means anything necessarily. I mean, maybe you do, but there are many who do not. And if you're honest, then you'll know that there are cases when you didn't even get the lyrics right. You were just making stuff up in your head. Now that you know the lyrics, what do you think? Aha, different song, right? So all these and all these aspects, sometimes you hear from the artists themselves what they think they meant, and you never really even know if they're being serious. They're telling the truth. Your interpretation might be better than theirs. Hell, they might have just not even had an idea what they were doing. They just sort of had the flow of elements involved in the artwork move through them based on the techniques they'd already mastered and so forth. So, or it might be entirely subconscious. Same with science. It can be too arcane for you to understand even what they mean, and sometimes it's too arcane for them to understand because they're following procedures that lead to results they don't understand, whether experimental or theoretical. None of this means there's no point to that art or that science. It just means that it's very concrete. That doesn't mean it's going to shine a light on anything for anyone. It just has the reputation for that possibility. When it comes to the essence of this possibility, philosophy explores that essence sometimes really abstractly. It's looking out at the frontiers of the possibilities of knowledge, as well as it's going deeper into the phenomena of its actuality. It's exploring the way that the actuality changes into the potentiality and the reverse. Some of what's on this whiteboard right now discusses that symbolically in forms that are, well, logical. It's just one way to go about it. There are many ways to express what's expressed by logic, and there are many ways to express what's expressed by cinema, and there's many ways to express what's expressed by mathematics, many ways to express what's expressed by, well, any form of art or science or philosophy. Without going into much detail about all that, it's just to say that of all these ways, in the end, you still have to make up your own mind about what's going on in your world. It doesn't matter to me. It cannot matter to me what you choose to do. If that were possible, it would only be because I somehow failed to persist in focusing on what really should have mattered to me, which was what I'm responsible for doing in my own life. There are a lot of subjects that tie into this. But they can't all be addressed economically in the framework of, say, 30 minutes, which will encapsulate a few ideas and make them clearer in some way. So I'm going to explain basically where I'm going with what I'm doing and what I'm going to do, and where I've been and what I've been up to at large in a way that's not really my thing to do. I'm not really about this part, but it should be done now and then, just to make sure all bases are covered. First of all, about how I do things. One, I don't explain myself. As anyone can see, I don't explain anything I do. I'm not talking about what I do. I'm talking about the matters that are important. That's what I do. I discuss those matters, and then I try to make sense out of them coherently, based on everything that I know and that there is readily at hand to investigate in the world, as best as I can. And I do that for me. I don't do that for you. I do that for me. But as a side effect of that, there are things that I can share with others. And others who happen to encounter what I present may take from it whatever they can or want. And they're totally responsible for whatever they think, say, or do. And I am in no way responsible for that. I take no credit and I take no blame for what anyone else does, period. I don't seek to influence others. People who have anything in them worthwhile should seek to actualize it. They should influence themselves through anything that helps them achieve that. If that includes what they encounter when they run into one of my videos or seek it intentionally, that's part of a process that's owing to their choices. I would have done what I would have done anyway. So all this whole, without getting into polemics, which are the criticisms, negative and presumably rightly negative criticisms of other people's ideas or doings. But I will say briefly that there are people who say things that are just wrong. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's wrong. It's false. And I'm going to say it that way. And then I'm going to back it up with evidence. And I explain what my evidence is. I present it. If I said 2 plus 2 equals 5 and I didn't back that up, I would think that some reasonable person would dismiss it, because I would. Now, all this is excluding the possibility that they basically run a configuration on the internet which loops all that I do back in on itself and bubbles it in so that it doesn't include all sorts of people, right? And it just includes certain types of people or attempts to do so, or in any other way manipulates it so that it doesn't, my content doesn't go out to everyone who should have a rightful chance to inform themselves as best they can about what reality is and how to deal with it. Apart from the question of who could possibly make any use of it or whether or not they would be worthy of being considered even people, is secondary to the issue of whether or not such people who could qualify to be called people and who could have a possibility or even an actuality of being good and knowing how to actualize it in the world as best they can, hence they would want to know what world it is they're in and what good and evil are, and properly be able to verify that inside themselves with all the evidence at their disposal. Those people, including them and only them, the question is, are they even able to reach this information without doing some very just unreasonably distorting things to their lives? And likewise, am I able to proceed to do what I'm supposed to or have to do in this life, in this world, without it being made too impossible because of circumstances? Because if it's the case that those are happening, so that it's being defeated at the start, then we live in a very evil universe, and that has to be acknowledged, even if only in private, even if it's only I who see this. I have to tell those who are involved how despicable they are. I have to judge them rightly. I have to condemn and provoke them as cowards that they are. And I have to make that a staple of what I do on some level. Likewise, if I live in a world where it reaches anyone who could be worthy of knowledge, I have to include content that could be useful for their process without even knowing who any of them are. I have to find out whatever that is, that medium between um, destructive and upbuilding material. But in the end, it's all destructive for lives, and it's all upbuilding the truth, no matter how I do it. If the shoes don't fit you, don't wear them. If they fit you, well, tough shit if you don't like it. Especially if they got your name sewn on the tongue on the inside, or if they're the trademark on the sole of the shoe. Well, then those are your shoes, asshole. And if they're not, then what are you upset about? I'm talking about the bad shoes that no one wants to wear. Hence the idiom, the saying, if the shoe fits, it doesn't. Hey, smart ass or not, tough shit. This is life. You can't deal with the truth. Then you know it doesn't grate. I don't think anything I say that's true grates against someone who's honest. I think if something I say honestly grates against somebody, it's because they're just lying pukes. They lie to themselves, they lie to others, and it has nothing to do with who's inside this shirt right now. It don't matter what I am, where I'm from, or where I'm heading at that rate. I'm the opposite of people who say where they're from, who they are, and where they're going should be important to you. I don't act like those people. I don't care if they were ever real or not. If they're just a myth, or both. If they were real and then they got exaggerated into a myth, or if the myth matches the man, I don't care. I don't care about Jesus. I don't care about any of these other figures, Muhammad, any of them. I don't care about people's stories. I'm not interested in your stories. You want to tell stories to somebody? Torture your children with that crap. You want to teach values? Why don't you start by having some values? Time to put on some shoes that fit, if they fit. You're involved in one of these secret programs where your job is to go around town fucking with people, basically. Something's wrong with you. You are not right. First of all, what you're doing is illegal. You need to be immediately arrested by any citizen that knows what you're doing, or by any law enforcement officer or intelligence agent that actually respects the law. They pretend and use as a cover to protect their cowardly, scared, skinny asses. If you're gonna wear the color of authority, you better have some, which means at a minimum enforce the laws in precedence from the most important to the least. You're going to be worrying about parking tickets when there's 6 trillion, 8.5 trillion, quote unquote, missing from the Pentagon budget. What the hell does that even mean? Assholes. You want to explain that? How the fuck that's possible? doesn't even make sense. It's not even a headline. There's no such thing as missing $8.5 trillion from anywhere. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. There's no such thing. So what it means, spell it out, is that it's unaccounted for. Why? Excuses, 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 excuses. Let me tell you something. With $1 trillion, I can run an army of secret agents inside the country, looking just like anybody else, maybe recruiting from people like that, maybe recruiting from scum who had nothing better to do, doesn't matter. Depends on the economy, I guess. Clue. Upwards of 50 million of these scumbags. I can recruit them from positions in society. I can install them in those positions. And I can incentivize it for about 40 years with $1 trillion. If I gave them an average salary that's freaking better than yours, probably. If you're an average person, sure as hell better than mine ever was. Better than a lot of professionals. Yeah, I could have an army of about 50 million of these scumbags. I could plant one on every city block, no matter how wealthy or how poor. That's with $1 trillion. I could do that for a good 40, 50 years. Make it cheaper as I go, more efficient, especially with advances in electronics, technologies of all sorts that are no doubt geometrically, logarithmically more advanced, given the fact that they suppress it and hide it from the public than what we know of in the public. They do this like they're hiding the bodies of someone they killed, their serial killer, and they're just weighing bodies down in the river so it comes up later or some nonsense like that. I mean, they're throwing people off by various means. You have no idea how advanced their technology is. They haven't leaked that to you. It would be like magic to you. And to me, it would be like magic. Just like what we have right now would be like magic to people living on an island, even right now, whose experience of the world's differences from theirs is simply non-existent. They have never seen what we do or have. It would seem like magic to them. Well, guess what? Model T back in what, 1910 or whatever? I think combustion engine technology should have been outdated by now, don't you? Don't you think maybe some sort of other type of energy harnessing could have been invented, mechanical or otherwise, for moving around objects? Just horse, steam, and then petroleum fuel for combustion. That's it. That's all we got, really. But we got quantum computers. You believe that shit? Anybody that believes that should be a feed bag for a dumbass. Is this difficult to believe? Really? Yes, it is. It's difficult to believe that we're stuck at exploding petroleum inside an enclosed space to rotate a shaft. Yeah, it is. That's difficult to believe. Cold fusion's probably 30 years old minimum. I don't care if it doesn't. What matters is that it's not infeasible that this is true. There's evidence for it, that they've been intentionally suppressing technology. There's evidence that they've been suppressing information, truthful information. They've been suppressing people's rights, been suppressing and invading your privacy. They've been taking money from one group of people and giving it to another for all kinds of nefarious purposes on many false pretexts. Sometimes under valid pretext, but a lot of times not. And sometimes even if the pretext would be valid, it's only because you don't know that they set that up as an excuse. That, yeah, they funded that group that they're bombing. To keep it short and simple. Funded them, trained them, told them what to do. You name it. $8.5 trillion. I already told you what I could do with $1 trillion of that. Just $1 trillion of that. And that's starting off. I could make it more efficient over time. We're not even talking about all the other. That's a classical type of operation. That's just funding an army of spies. That's all that is. Kings spied on their own population since they ever had the power to do so. Paranoid fuckers. There's no authority in that. There's no authority in their cowardice and fear, so that they need to spy on people and frame them for crimes that they themselves commit, just in order to stay on top of the chaos that results. At the rate that that goes, it's silly to look at the world through the lens that it asks you to. That's like them putting a hole in a wall and then telling you, hey, go stick your eye in this hole. Or stick your mouth over it. Or stick some body part over it. Or in it. You don't even know what that is. Or even who they are. They're so nice. And they're so well dressed. And they have such a long tradition and family history of being nice and well dressed. And torturing people to death. Oops, forgot that part. But it's in there too. The fine print. Whole books about it. Should I go get one and put it in front of the camera? Do we have to play like, adults showing books to children? No. Go read a book about history. Go read a book about the history of anything. And these people are just all over the place. I am more important than you. I can tell you what position your body should be in right now. And if you don't assume it, you're not engaging. You're not engaging. You should engage. You didn't engage the way I wanted you to engage. You weren't standing erect enough. You were standing too erect. You think that's just military stuff? I was in the infantry for 3 years. I went through Fort Benning. Frankly, I wasn't impressed. The psychological warfare bullshit that they tried to pull on me and everyone else. I don't know what the hell they were trying to achieve with that. They just made themselves look silly, trying to dominate someone else's will, while the whole time it requires my internally given or not given permission, whether or not that's going to go forward. Unless they start with physical torture, and then things are going to get out of hand. It ain't going to be like Full Metal Jacket. It doesn't go there, not because it couldn't have. I could have provoked it that far. I can still do so. Anyone can. But what's that got? What's that prove? I could also just go walk right into an avalanche of boulders if I see one. Look at that. I could slow down and stop and let the boulders go down the hill, or I could just keep walking with my proud self. I mean, there's no issue of pride or honor here with these people. It's good if you sense that at the beginning and you don't buy into their bullshit. You watch too many G.I. Joe and Transformers cartoons as a kid without reflecting, well, you're going to get programmed into believing that red is evil and blue is good or some stupid shit like that, and then you're going to be programmed for the rest of your life. And then you'll be really confused when you watch The Matrix and the blue pill is the evil and the red pill is the one that liberates you. Wow. I mean, to look at things in a superficial way and then just go along with them, it's insane. And if you were able to refuse to do that internally at a young age, the world hated you. If it didn't hate you for that reason, it didn't hate you for any reason that matters. You're just part of the passion play then. If it loved you for any reason at all, then it doesn't matter. You're just part of passion play. You're serving it. The only time that it matters what the world has to say is when it hates you because you value reality and truth more than whatever the hell it is they're trying to distract you with. Whatever they are, demons, aliens, archons, bureaucrats, assholes that live in your neighborhood who should be banished from the country or hung at the most convenient tall tree for treason or other crimes upon proper review of evidence and honest and an upright due process all the way through. Yeah, I don't believe in lynch mobs. There's no need for it. Why do you ever need a lynch mob? Why do you ever need a riot? Why do you ever need to do something stupid like that? We can get to the gallows properly just by bringing out all the evidence, just by exposing the evidence that's available if someone is guilty of a crime and then investigating it properly. Clearly, the people who are charged with those duties are not fulfilling them. If 8.5 trillion is a mystery. Among other things, national debt. You ever asked yourself what debt is? I've seen that word bandied about a lot, and I've seen people whining about it my whole life. Like it's this big, heavy, colossal weight in their atlas, and poor them, and here's this debt. Ooh. What is it? Who owes what to whom and why? For what? I'm not making this all about that. Let's just say that the resolution of those questions, if they were resolved properly, evidentially and logically, both based on the facts and on sound reasoning, would eliminate the national debt instantly. Oh, people that are going to lose control of other people because of that being true don't like it. But the reason they don't like it is because it's true. Because what I'm saying is that evidence can be presented to demonstrate to any reasonable person that this debt is false and why. And that it could go get chiseled in stone and put in the public square. And if the people that have a problem with it are not unreasonable monsters, then it could be demonstrated factually and to an audience, assuming that they're not a mob of idiots or psychotronically entrained and conditioned peasants at the push of a button, armed with either rotten cabbage or AK-47s, whatever these stooges are being equipped with these days. And I would be able to safely uphold all these things that I claim about that debt. And it goes way beyond that. The whole matter of currency and how it is created and distributed in the economy. The whole matter of what an economy is and what qualifies as a good or a service, and whether or not it's part of the commonwealth or private. And how that line is drawn. All that can be done clearly enough. There would be no enslaving delusion of debt, where there in fact rightly is not said to be any debt. If I were just, and I don't have to go so far as to go into details. It can be done generally, just by asking questions about where that debt supposedly comes from and how it came to be, and then what the proper way for debts to be resolved is or evaluated, and who is protected, and in what cases against wrongfully incurred debt or debt that is not actually incurred but is falsely implied to be incurred. There are many ways this can be done, so that I don't even have to go into details. But if I went into any details about, say, a trillion here or a trillion there that should never have even been handled that way, there should not be an army of spies living in this country spying on Americans from any country. Did you understand that? Not from the United States and not from any other country. No one should be spying on you right now. Did you know that spying on someone is a criminal act? Did you know that spying on someone, unless you've declared war on him, is an act of war that, if discovered, makes you an aggressor, an international criminal against justice? Did you know that? Without regard to the supposed inefficiency of international legal bodies and blah, 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 you don't get to use nomenclature to gobbledygook to guard your wrongful actions on that scale. That should be state of the art. So if you can't get that right, then your overpriced fancy suit and you in it can all go to hell, no matter what legal or other supposedly authoritative body you are in. You're a joke. You're a pimp. You're a whore. You have no virtue. You have no authority. Your power is very shaky at best. All it takes is for people to refuse to continue buying into your bullshit and it's over. That will always be your precarious situation. You will always be hiding. Did you hear me? You will always be hiding. But guess what? You won't be hiding forever. It comes to an end. I'm just trying to expose what I can about it toward that end, to facilitate it as best as I can, because I know there's a lot of suffering going on that's not reported in the news, that people don't know about, and frankly, honestly, do not care about, no matter what they pretend, no matter who they pretend to be. There's so many people like that, it's disgusting just by itself. Did you know there are children being raped and tortured all over the world right now? You think I'm making that up? It's a statistical fact. Fact. We find their bodies. We see, well, I don't see, but someone sees the video evidence because they make sport of it and then sell it. Instead of catching those fuckers, they've got billions and billions to throw around, paying bums to crawl up your ass when you walk down the street. How do you like that? That's why I call most people idiots and morons. Because they are. If you use logic, common sense, and evidence available, you don't need to take my word for it. I can start all over from scratch and I'll reach the same conclusion every time. basically, in this situation now, all there is to do is whatever it is you can rightly and properly do about it, whatever that is. Whatever that is, that's always been your only obligation. Your obligation is not to a person, a place, or a thing. It's to your own conscience, assuming you have one. And some people think they do. That's obvious. They use the nomenclature, they use the words, they use the grammar. They even sometimes seem to use the logic of morality and the rhetoric. They seem to have the trivial aspects down. But they don't have the essence. God is not in league with them. Not on their side. They are not in league with God. They are not on God's side. They are mutually incompatible. But they think that they are righteous people. They think they're right. Well, they're wrong, and they think they're right. And there are people who are right who think they're wrong, and there are people who are wrong who think they're wrong, and there are people who are right who think they're right. They all exist. And this is the group that's wrong and thinks it's right. I'm talking about these people who are too cowardly to face facts. They keep buying into false paradigms. They keep buying into these media-pushed, psychotronically entrained, toxiceutically catalyzed delusions, which are laminated over, secreted upon the ever-fracturing concrete of classical tyranny, which still has not left the face of the earth by any means, anywhere. It's just become more sophisticated, polished, and in many ways, schizophrenic. If you look at the amount of lies and covert operations being conducted in countries today compared to the past, and if you look at the efficiency with which this can take place due to technological improvements, you have a situation where it is calculably inevitable that, and that it has already occurred, that a society has broken away from the rest of society, not only in their associations, not only in the fact that they all have a certain amount of wealth, go in the same circles, are in a certain class, because that had already happened. The study of history is a study of these class divisions, these caste systems. What we have now is not a case where that is the only problem. If that were the only problem, it would be enough, and it would be as unsolved as ever. Now it is so technologically advanced that it is like having two worlds coexist simultaneously. And we're not just talking about first, second, third world, but that is the case. We are technically, in many ways, compared to what we should be by now, based on what we were 20, 30 years ago, or even further back, a fourth world country. There are probably 3 more worlds of tangible advancement moving logarithmically ahead of where we are now in terms of every possible mode of convenience or activity, the way time is qualitatively available to people, and quantity becomes a function of quality at probably the very next stage. Because I'm sure those who tasted that said, that's a whole new dimension of power. We're not going to let the rest of them have it. And there's a reason for that, because that power would free good people from evil people forever. Quite frankly, it would be enough. It would at least give them the power to do proper battle against them. Because if I also have bows and arrows, chariots, horses, battering rams, fortresses, and you are not the only one that has them, you cannot just walk into my country and do whatever you want. Whatever my country is and whatever yours is, whoever's good and whoever's bad, we're at a standstill when it comes to just doing whatever you want in my country. Whatever the laws are, whether it's tyrannical or free or whatever, if the technological level of people is on par, and let's just say, even if their intelligence, the intelligence levels of their thinking caste, their priestly caste, the other features and virtues of their different castes and classes, if they're on par with one another, then these nations cannot, by sheer qualitative distinction, overcome one another, but by quantitative distinction or by timing or just better circumstances because of some event out of either one's control or whatever. As heaven would decide it, as they say, fate, that's the only way at that point. That's more of a fair fight compared to what's going on when you invade a little island with a bunch of tanks and all they got is grass skirts. So if if they could have a qualitative distinction at least analogous to that, how would they dare even resist it given their evil nature already demonstrated for thousands and thousands of years? Why would they ever even dream of doing anything other than immediately using it on everyone around them? What are the criminals we catch in the streets every day that those who didn't find some way to squeeze their evil little butts into an office of official power, an actual position of official power? They didn't reach that position of office because obviously they're scum. But what if the scumbags are a little more sophisticated and manage to infiltrate these offices while they're being formed? What if they manage to take under their wing anybody with a thinking mind instead of just torturing them or bothering them about their personal lives and say, look, we'll give you the freedom to work free, as the way you want about what you want. You don't have to live like a peasant. Use your mind to serve us. Well, they did that. They did that since ancient times, and they did that recently, especially during World War II, tangibly, but before then. Long before Maxwell's famous equations, were they working on electromagnetics. By the time he came out with his equations, some of his work having been redacted from public display, by the way, although that is a bit of conspiracy history. They had been working on it just before then. There are those who say that the technology hidden is about 50 years ahead of the technology we see. Well, it's got to be more than that because it's geometric in its growth. So that means 50 years didn't mean the same thing it meant 50 years ago. We've got to start at the beginning with something like that. We've got to go back to around 1800. Let's go back further in the strategic ways that these royal societies of scientists and priesthoods and religions and so forth all formed colleges of association meant to secure the power of those who have it over those who don't. It's that simple. They love their comforts, and you're not getting any. Why? They never wanted you to have any. They're descended from. They're the power positions they have, the power positions, like the state of the electron in the atom, where it is and why it's there, is constantly energized by a certain amount of corrupt evil in them, corrupt natured evil. They like torturing children. Those who like it most, seemingly no matter what political system or economic system we have, they tend to rise up. And then if a new political or economic system emerges and along with a technological revolution that supports it or sustains it should arise, they will subvert it and corrupt it instantly and immediately. It's a threat to their power. It's like the village of the damned or the children of the damned. They'll be the damned if they let those children grow up. They are damned, even if they don't, because they can't be stopped. Well, they can be theoretically, but the whole does humanity have the right to exist as it were in some fundamental way? We have things to say about humanity. But before going there, just look at the way that it has acted on the whole. Do we really want to pretend that the slave classes are there unwillingly? Look how many of them there are. Look how gladly they'll team up on anybody that corrupt authorities demand that they scapegoat. Look how happily they do it. Why won't they do it on the few who happen to hold power whenever they are corrupt and when they demonstrate it? These same cowards won't fight an invading army by either joining the army that goes out to defend or fighting the best they can when they're invaded in their cities. These cowards are everywhere. Not all cities were like that, not all nations were like that. I guarantee you these fat, lazy bums in this country are like that, and in any other so-called developed country. They're morally, ethically weak at best. That's at best. That's not an insult. That's a fact. It's insulting to say otherwise, given what they're permitting, and what they're ignoring, and what they're condoning, what they're failing to do anything about at all, en masse. They have the gall to say, why don't you do something? That's all I've been doing is something about it. My whole life, resisted at every turn, suppressed at every turn without even knowing why. Believing the bullshit the whole time that people actually cared about the truth and people were basically good. Just needed to be awakened to the information they didn't have so they could make a better decision. Ha ha ha. Every excuse used to justify these cowardly peasants, because that's what they are, fails because people readily continue and proceed with doing what is right in the face of all these excuses. And the rest of these scum don't. Not only that, they don't just lay there and hide in the shadows. They're not skulkers on the battlefield that at least don't stab their own soldiers in the back and loot them. They actually turn sides whenever they see that their side's losing. And they believe that the righteous lose. They believe that evil wins because in this world they help make it happen, so they believe it. But I'm here to tell you only what is true. And that is what has been said before by others who've said the same thing throughout history, which is that in the end, which comes sooner than people realize, there is going to be a very different destiny for the people who did evil in this world than those who did right. There's going to be a very different destiny. And it's not going to be the way the fake religious dogmas told them. It's not going to be the way you believe it's going to be. It's going to be the way it's going to be. Even if it's going to be basically what your dogma or doctrine says, that doesn't mean it's going to be the way you think that's going to be. How do you have the right to say and presume that what Jesus' blood means is what you think it means, just because you think it? So you're saying if he came himself and said, actually, I didn't come to sacrifice myself for the guilty, you would just say he's the devil or something, that he's a liar? See, you believe in your dogma and your doctrine first. That's most important to you because that's what you were indoctrinated with when you were children, frankly. Why do I use that tone? Because I'm sick of the bullshit. Thousands of years of bullshit. And I'm tired of it being polished and called a Tootsie Roll. So, take your stinky Tootsie Roll and go chew on it. You don't know anything about Jesus, his blood, his life, or his death. You have a set of beliefs, set of fantasies promulgated to you by people with interests that you don't even know what they are. You have no idea what Charlemagne wanted to achieve with his version of Holy Writ, nor King James, nor any other thug. You don't know. You're blind, you're mute, you're deaf, you're dumb. The priest will tell you what to do, what's right and wrong. Get your ass out there and farm. Can't even have a copy of the damn meaningless Frankenstein monster sewn together piece of propaganda. Much less go into the vaults down below and see what else has been written on the subject, of which some tiny, tiny, tiny little fraction was pre-selected for you, butchered up nice and good, and then pasted together so badly that a child could look at it and want to vomit. At the immorality and evil and senseless confusion of its stories. So hacked. Even a child can see it's a hack job. You just believe it like God put really. Some guy, some fool on the YouTube who may or may not be using his name in his face. Troll as far as I'm concerned. Called himself a Baptist. Whatever. Cares. Thinks King James Bible is just, cares? Who cares? There's people out there that worship a rock that because they stubbed their toe on it, made them late for work, and then the damn place blew up because there was a gas main leak, and everybody else that made it to work died, and they're going to worship that rock for the rest of their life, and they don't give a damn what you or your book has to say. That was meaningful in their life. What you got, who the hell knows what it's worth? Might not be worth throwing in a fireplace because of the toxic fumes that'll come out of it. The only thing dangerous about that crap is that it's a bunch of lies. With some truths mixed in that were stolen from something else that's been either burned or safely buried and only unearthed recently, unfortunately by the right people. We didn't get all that either. We lost 90% of anything we have from the past on average. I'm sure that's about the number. If there's any corpus left, it's about 5 to 10% of what there was. The point is, you don't know. You don't know. You don't even know why you don't know, or how anyone can even think that they would know or not know. You just believe that you know because your parents told you something. And your poor little mind couldn't wrap itself around anything else anyway. Just got done sucking your thumb and your mom's nipple. So now you're cutting your teeth on anything they tell you. But they got your attention. Your soul belongs to whoever, but your ass belongs to them. Truth be told, so does your soul, because most of you out there, you have physical souls. You don't have spiritual souls. Your soul is nothing but another body inside your body. It's a machine. It's an artificial intelligence. Sorry to tell you, sort of, but who cares? If it's true, it's true. You just got to live with it. You're a skin job. What Blade Runners would call a skin job. You're not a real person. You're synthetic. Why? And that's why you can just be conditioned by anything. Nothing pushes you to that point where you say, I'd rather not function, I'd rather not live, or even be able to process the consciousness of life than to do this, or be that, or experience this or that, or see or believe. You don't have, and therefore you could never develop a conscience. There's nothing you're really willing to die for. There's things that you're willing to risk your life for on the hope that you'll win. Now, I'm not saying this is true for everybody, and there are. And that code has been overridden. I mean, there is a primitive kind of conscience thrown into all animal life to make sure they protect their young enough. I mean, it's there. It's not foolproof by any means. And it doesn't lead to the protection of everyone's offspring in most cases necessarily at all. It's very precarious. It's not based on principle. There's nothing noble about it. It's mechanical. Just like being in a body and being used to that is mechanical. It's all mechanical. It's just the truth. Physiologists will all tell you that it is. They don't know everything about that, and they go a little too far when they try to relate the mind to the body mechanically, but that's a different issue. But that's not the issue here. Here it's actually correct. But when it comes to the spiritual dimension that influences the body in ways that they can't calculate, well, there's two different kinds of souls in that dimension, not just the kind that, not just one kind. Not everybody has the same soul. There are physical souls. They don't have a conscience, properly speaking. They don't have a nature that transcends programmability in this dimension. Now, 100% of what you call a conscience in them can be programmed by carrots and sticks. Carrots and sticks. That's all it takes. Enough carrots and sticks, and then you got them thinking that they're right as rain. They're square as a right angle. Got them thinking that just punish them and reward them enough. They're like ants. It's amazing. If ants, if you put crumbs in a certain pattern, you can make ants show you good behavior. Because you can spell out good behavior with those crumbs. Those ants have showed you good behavior because you laid out the crumbs correctly. Yeah, it's kind of punny. But if you think about it, that's all that's being done, and people can't see and don't care about the nature of the crumbs laid out, and they just blindly eat them. Like these scumbags who get their rent paid, or get little gift cards, or get little extra money, or just have the jobs that they have because they're sycophants to tyrants. Soulless scum is what you are. But your faces, and your assholes, and your elbows all look human enough. Because we've seen you running from the truth. And we've seen the back of your head every time the truth comes around, and it has a face on it. Because you have two. One to see where you're running, and one to look back at where you're running from and pretend that you're not running. They're running. They're running so fast that they can't see their feet move, and they're making the earth rotate the opposite direction. And all you're doing is running a treadmill that they're causing because of their projection and evasion of the truth. They're the ones deluded. Well, okay, well, that's La La Land. That's La La Land. If that's really the case, then obviously G.I. Joe is the way actual warfare works. That's what's going on in real war. People shoot couches with laser beams until they get the other side to give up, and then they come out from the other side of those couches, hands up, and they get marched single file without a single casualty to, I guess, some jail cell. That's how it works. Yeah, okay. Nice fantasy. Show that to the children who've never seen anything in real life yet. It's not school, so they won't immediately hate it, and it's not a lying, hypocritical adult's face blabbering incoherently and insincerely about something. So they'll pay attention to it. It's colorful. It's got some movement. People seem half serious and convicted about what they're doing. There's bullshit. But it's toast with some butter on it. It's better than the dry toast over here. Those are your two choices. And it's amazing what will be accepted as buttered toast when you're young. As tasty. As better than the dry stuff that's usually offered on TV. Been programmed by a primitive mind that grew up and developed and therefore couldn't know everything at once and was intimidated by the giants that had total control over its fucking body, believed what you were told, were too afraid to and incapable of understanding the situation it was in, but not necessarily for just that, inevitably becoming a corrupt son of a bitch or whore upon reaching adulthood, or well before that. We're just a robotic slave that can eventually be teetered toward that, more or less. Unstable at best. Too paralyzed to move, can't take a side, can't really be good. Just too squeamish to be truly evil. But they get to wear the accoutrements of rightness. They're the salt of the earth. Their vote matters. So they believe. Again, more fantasy land. Well, I'm not catering to fantasy land. That's why I have this tone. Yeah, I have this tone for a reason. I'm pretty much sick of the stinky Tootsie Roll. Go chew it somewhere. I'm not talking about. Actually, to get into the difference between the appearance of something and its substance is the main direction where I'm going. Because that's the basis upon which all fraud is conducted. To present a front which misleads people into believing what's going on in the back is different than it is. When in fact it's often the opposite of what's being presented in front. It's bluffing, it's lying, it's gambling, it's cheating, it's bullshit, it's fake. It's the worst confidence trick ever performed by any being on any other being, as far as I can tell. Huge in scale. Huge. Colossal, gigantic. It's so this fraud is so gigantic in scale, I don't really know how you can compare it with anything and do it justice. I guess it's kind of like if it's kind of just like if we went and found some ants somewhere and just with some technology even better than what we have now, maybe not. Maybe say something physical, like a solid glass cylinder is just slammed into the ground. It's thick, strong, maybe got diamond edges or something, who cares, whatever. You get basically a glass cylinder in there. You're an engineer, materials scientist, knock yourself out. And then that scoops out a section of the ground. Those ants don't have any idea. On any level that they can have ideas. The queen doesn't know nothing but the whole thing for a mile. And there's room left for air on top. Everything's kind of the same as before. Except once they get to the edge of that glass, if they ever do, they're stuck. Of course, they can't fly, but if they could, they'd be stuck up there too, eventually. Any birds in there are stuck, whether they know it or not. There's trees. I mean, it goes out for about a mile. Maybe it's a sphere. Maybe it even gets part of a river, not the whole thing. There's still flow through it and around it, but there's a filter. Now whatever was caught inside that bubble is stuck there. There may be even all kinds of little conditions for getting in and out. Who knows how complex it is? But basically, it's a giant space aliens ant farm. That's what the world is right now. That's the only way I can put it in a context that helps people understand what they are and where they are and what they're dealing with. Now, just because we have technology Doesn't mean no one else does. And just because we can use it on animals doesn't mean no one else can use it on animals and us. We use it on ourselves. It's known. And animals. So just because we're the only ones we openly know are more advanced than the other animals we openly know about doesn't mean there aren't other beings who are just more advanced than we are and can and will use technology upon us in a way that causes us, even on a planetary scale, to resemble an ant farm. Ants that have no idea that they're in an ant farm or even that they're ants. Because really, as beings like this, you don't really know what you are. You don't even know what you are. You don't know what you are until you know why they did this and what they expect to get out of it. Only then do you know what you are. You could be something going around on a conveyor belt, basically, not knowing why it's going on a conveyor belt. You could be a part of something about to be built. You could be something someone's going to take off that's on a plate and then they're going to eat it. You could be something that does something and is not harmed in the process and will never change and will always maybe be part of that conveyor belt. Who knows? But part of the reason it's there. But you don't know everything about it until you know why it was there, why you were put there, why the situation came about, and where it's going. And basically humanity has not even the first little tiny clue about that. And what I mean by humanity is two things. I mean the essence of humanity, like everyone tends to, but that's got two essences. As I said, there's souls that are bodily only, and then there's souls that are actually capable of having spiritual qualities. May or may not. Depends on whether or not they have a spirituality in them. What kind of spirit that being is. There's agency involved. These aren't just metals that happen to be in different proportions inside different types of soil or rock or ore or something, and you just find it. And no, it's not just found that way. They're active forces. They're dynamic, just like God and the universe was before in the first place. But that is simply to say again that there are not all the same kind of beings in humanity. So there's, on that scale of talking about humanity, more than one kind. But if you want to talk about the humanity that you find in the world, no matter what kind of humanity it is, it's just a bunch of people. That's all it is. It's just a bunch of people. That's it. If there were 5 people, that'd be humanity. If there's 5 trillion people, that's humanity. If there's one person, that's humanity. It's a very concrete thing. Pick any 5 people in this world, wipe out everyone else, that's humanity now. Everyone else is history. They're the present, no one else. It can happen in an instant. So fantasies about what's normal and fantasies about what humanity is in some general way instantly become vague when you think about it like that. Now think about the classes of people that there are found in all these bunches of people, how they bunch together differently. Some clearly have more control over themselves than others, and some clearly have more control over others than others. And there's reasons for that. And most of it's due to the ignorance of a group and an unwillingness and apathy in them concerning values and facts and the wherewithal to do anything right about any of it. And some of it has to do with technological advancements and secretive methods and covert methodologies employed against the other group, which are just real efficient. And they happen to apply them efficiently. Their theory and their practice are humming right along, and they're even public about a lot of it. And still, sometimes I wonder, why are they so public? Why do they allow anything to happen? Is their control just that severe? Well, honestly, I can't say that I would be surprised if it were true, because people's apathy is just that damn massive. It's almost like they let this stuff leak out without spelling it all out. They come just short of spelling it all out. It's just like watching a game of Wheel of Fortune with some really, 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 really hopeless people watching and trying to guess. And I wonder they don't sometimes just throw those clues out there just to see, okay, will any of them get it? How many? In what way? exaggerate. Fluoride's been known to be harmful for a long time to a lot of not fucking stupid scientists, okay? And people that use their common sense would know fluoride is not a vitamin for your brain. But okay. Tap water for the babies. Tap water for the children. Tap water. Fluoride and everything. Let's just fluoridate our children. We love them so much. How dare you pervert. We love to fluoridate our children. We love to get them rid of other brain damaging chemicals in the food, air, and water. We don't care what's in those chemtrails. We don't care. We don't even know those chemtrails. What chemtrails are we talking about? That doesn't impact my rent. And I like Doritos and Kool-Aid, so nothing to say to me. I love my titanium dioxide and sodium fluoride, chlorosilicic acid, or whatever they also put in water. I like lead and lithium. They're saying these people are basically saying this like a mantra, a chant all the time. They may as well be. I just want to be in denial all the time. I go to work on time, I pay my bills, I pay my taxes, go to church. It's like, wow. The worst thing about these people is that they take up time and space. Other than that, there's really no way to qualify them as people. They take up time and space like people. They form, you don't even need them for an economy. All you need are honest people for an economy. It can be of any size, as long as they're all honest. That's all you need. You don't need more than enough people to have a good-sized village to have a decent. You don't even need that. You need a homestead could exist. It'd be tough, but if the technology were improved over a long enough period of time, with enough generation after generation of honest people growing up in the homestead and the community of homesteads, eventually you'd have Star Trek: The Next Generation. Their descendants will build the USS Enterprise, the USS Liberty. Why don't we call it the USS Liberty? I think some people know what I mean. I don't know what the motto of the Navy is, but I know what the motto of the Army is. And I don't know how seriously most infantrymen in the Army take it, but basically, if you're not willing to defend what you claim matters, then you just need to shut up. Don't use words. Don't use English. Don't use human language. Don't talk about things. Don't talk. Don't talk to humans with human language. You say one thing, you do another. What matters, you should defend. You should speak up about at least. If there's nothing else you can do, you can stand up and speak up about something. Somebody, while you're distracting the villain, will be able to go in and deal the blow. You might have to take the hit, but you know what? Would you have gone in with the blow of someone else with a distraction? No? Well, then you've done the best you can do. It's honorable enough. But I don't see people even doing that. And if they're doing it either not completely, they're not revealing everything they can about themselves and who they are and what they're about, and they may have their many excuses for not doing so. Or they may actually be, in some way, intentionally poisoning the punch bowl. It's hard to know. And they often throw that around and accuse one another. I'm not into it. I don't care if they are. That's just more lies to uncover. It's just going to make this whole thing unfurl even more intensely. someone wants to do that, they're just going to aggravate the catalysis of truth revelation, which will explode. They're just going to push it to critical that much faster. That's all they're going to do. They don't know what they're doing. They're just clumsy fools bumbling around in the dark hoping it works, whatever they're trying. They're just desperate demons. That's all. Desperate fakes, desperate liars, caught red-handed.